for hot takes and insight from local industry experts in real estate, business, and lifestyle. He used to play ball with the Padres. He played hockey for the Lobos. Now they're crushing it in the real estate game. Together, they'll showcase the best of the Duke City. This is All About You, ABQ.
God, I love that intro. It's all about you, ABQ. Now, the goal of the show is to highlight the best of our city's industry experts in real estate, culture, lifestyle, so that you walk away with some value and feeling inspired. Now, the way we like to do that is to answer the questions you may have or interview the guests that you'd like to see. So we invite you to join the conversation. You can reach out using the hashtag up here or below, or join our email list to get some timely tips about our community, real estate market. Hey, I'm Skip Adams, owner of Sold by Skip Real Estate Brokerage here in Albuquerque.
Yeah, Grant Harvey at Vision Mortgage, home mortgage lender.
And you probably recognize Grant as the head coach of the University of New Mexico men's Lobo hockey team, but now he's absolutely crushing it in the mortgage space.
Thank you, Skip. And you may have recognized Skip from HGTV's House Hunters, and he's part of the top 2 producing real estate agents in the nation.
All right, always a warm welcome for that. I appreciate the kind words, dude.
Of course, it's nothing but the truth.
Yeah. Well, a little skewed, but here's why you're going to want to stay tuned. We got a fantastic show coming up for you. Grant's going to jump into the Mortgage Minute. It's got some good info for investing in properties this episode. Plus, stay tuned. We have Dr. Chris Plaman, a local boy who moved away for a little bit and then found his way back to Albuquerque to start an absolutely thriving hair restoration company here locally. So we're going to learn about his story. And then stay tuned to the end of the episode. I don't even have to tell you, but I'm going to tell you. Yeah. I don't have to, but I'm going to. Stay tuned for Skip's Tips. Yeah. So
I wish we had that little Jamaican wah, 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 wah,
yeah, the party horn.
Yeah, nah. Anyway, we'll have to save it for another episode. But let's catch up. What'd you do this weekend?
You know what? My weekend was not as exciting as yours. I heard you found something fun and interesting to do in Albuquerque, and that's really what the show is about, is everything Albuquerque. So talk a little bit about how you got lost and then found.
Yeah, so I guess I was a little bit of a rascal this weekend, and we went on the scavenger hunt. So there's a couple that you can do. One's in Old Town.
And they're both at an 8-year-old birthday party?
No, these are much more advanced. They were sophisticated clues. You have to use your phone, GPS. So I did the morning session, and it was really fun. It went from like 6 to 8. You learn about Old Town. You kind of scurry around, beat everyone else. You remind me of like being in Boy Scouts, because I was a Boy Scout, and that's a different episode. But it was kind of cold out because I do my traditional cold showers, and I was just kind of frostbitten at the end. So.
Yeah, I'm always frostbitten. For me, the high desert climate is good. I like the dry air here, because I feel like anytime I go out to California or you're in the humidity, I'm always freezing.
Yeah.
And it is winter time here, so I got to say
this is about the most frustrating thing about this guy.
I own it, though.
He was in New Mexico, went out to San Diego, all of a sudden got a whole new blood type, and then he came back here, and then when it's cold, he just has his voice like Dora the Explorer, starts speaking Spanish about how cold it is. So, but my other guests can probably testify to this too, about being from San Diego and coming back. But it's this guy. He's actually cold right now. He's about to wear a North Face jacket on stage.
Once we go to break, I get my jacket out and I do a little bonfire in the corner. So what?
Then he gets his Coleman stove, and then we make some Vienna sausages, and he warms up his hands. Let's slowly transition into what we were talking about for real estate.
Well, I had a question for you before the show. And when we talk about real estate investing, there's a couple different ways you can tap into equity, right? So we have an investment property, and I brought a question up to you as far as how do we tap into that? What's the best way? Are there home equity lines of credit available on investment properties? Do we do a cash out refi?
Right.
Grant, you always have such a good finger on the pulse of mortgages. So why don't we transition into the Mortgage Minute?
Welcome to the Mortgage Minute. Today's topic will be borrowing on equity and home equity lines of credit, home equity loans, and cash out refinances. So those are the 3 types of way that you can get access to your equity. Equity being the difference between how much money you owe and how much you'd like to borrow, or what's left on your loan, right? So if you own your house free and clear, you have up to about 80% you can borrow up to. Let's talk about a home equity line of credit. Home equity line of credit is like a credit card pinned against your house. So it will have a variable rate, and you can treat it like a credit card, and you can pay it back, you can borrow, and it has rates that are subject to the Fed rate. So this will be the first time the Fed rate comes back into play, because that's the way that banks can borrow money. There's one method. Home equity loan is a way to take a lump sum of money and then have a fixed rate and have a payback period right from the get-go. A lot of people like to borrow equity out of there. You have a third method, which is a cash-out refinance, which allows you to borrow against your house using the equity and actually paying off the first loan if you have one and making it one payment. Now, there are different vehicles to borrow against your equity. It depends on what you're trying to do. All three of them are actually tax deductible if you use the proceeds towards home improvement. If you use it towards another investment property, then you are subject to not being able to use the mortgage interest on or deduct it from your taxes. So depending on which way you want it to go, I would always say that doing a cash out refinance is probably the lowest rate, but keep in mind, if you have a cash out refinance, every refinance you ever do will be considered cash out from there on out. So that wraps up the three different ways to access your equity, and that will be your Mortgage Minute.
Dude, great info as always, Grant. When we talk about investment properties, one of our producers, Ophelia, brought it up to our attention that she's in the market to find an investment property, but how do we go through and quantify what makes a good investment property? So a couple of things we always talk about is, what does that property rent for each month? So if the property is renting for $2,000 a month and your mortgage is only $1,500 a month, then you're cash flowing $500 a month. So that would make it a good investment, right? So that's the one thing you always want to do, is check the cash flow on your investment properties. If for whatever reason your mortgage is $2,000, but it's only bringing in $1,500 in rent, then you're going to be upside down every month. So those are just a couple of basic things to look for when you're looking for an investment property.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of pitfalls. I think there's been a new wave or an influx of people saying, I want to get an investment property, and the secret's out there. The problem is the secret lies in when you need to figure out what your cash flow is. Is there maintenance fees? You also be mindful that when you're getting an investment property, the interest rate is usually 2% higher. There's points associated with it. It costs a lot of money to get into these, because Fannie Mae has said that they only want about 9% of their portfolio to be investment property. So that's something to be mindful of. That mortgage payment can be a lot higher than you think, because it's not a primary residence rate.
If it sounds like a lot of information to know, it really is. So that's why it's important to have good professionals in your corner, whether you're looking at properties, looking at financing options. And if you ever have a deal come up and you want us to take a look at it, we're happy to break it down for you. But coming up, here's where you're going to want to stay tuned. Dr. Chris Plaman of Precision Medical Hair Restoration is in the building. He's going to talk about why he chose to open a business in Albuquerque versus another state. And then stay tuned to the end of the show.
Skip's tips.
Skip's tips. Stay tuned. Welcome back to UABQ, show that highlights the best of our city's industry experts in real estate, culture, lifestyle. And we're joined today by Dr. Chris Plaman, who is the owner and head physician over at Precision Medical Hair Restoration.
Yeah, nailed it. Yeah, it's all over. It's all over the city, right? You drive down the freeway, and there he is on the billboard. So
that's true. You know, it's funny. I was driving to the office one day, and I saw his big, beautiful mug right there, overlooking, what was it, Paseo on one, we had I-25 the other. This guy's got it.
Yeah, he's got a Goodyear blimp with just his face on there. Yeah,
we want to welcome Chris Plaman. Dude, thanks for taking time out of your day. I know you're running a business. You're a physician. You've got your hands full. You're back and forth between here, California, keeping people employed and everybody happy. So thanks for taking the time today.
Absolutely, Skip. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Yeah, this guy's a long-time friend of mine, and we'll get into that. But he's a Albuquerque born, St. Pius, UNM undergrad. So he's spent time away, and he's back in Albuquerque. And I'm personally thankful to have him back here. I love having my friends back home. So
appreciate that. It's great to be back.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about your backstory, though. I know Grant mentioned St. Pius, but so born and raised.
Yep. Born and raised in Albuquerque. So I spent the first 26 years of life here in town. So I have a very strong UNM and New Mexico bias. Yeah. So high school, I played ice hockey at St. Pius, and then played ice hockey with Grant at UNM for a couple years. Eventually had to hang up my skates and focus more time in the library. So
Can we tell a funny story? So here's how it kind of went down. So Chris was a very, very passionate, hard-hitting hockey player, and he had suffered a couple of concussions, and he told us, he goes, guys, if I'm going to finish my medical career ambitions, I should probably relax. And we're going, no, it'll be fine, man. It's only a few concussions. This guy's the smartest guy in the locker room. Like he actually realized like this had to stop. And if I'm going to chase my medical dreams, I should probably stop letting my brain hit my skull. So I loved. I mean, we were sad to see him go, but man, this guy's tenacity in the ice rink was unrivaled. So I loved him as a teammate.
Right now we're just trying to apply that same tenacity into hair restoration.
Yeah.
So, but it all goes back to UNM hockey. You just apply that passion into anything.
There will be no more bald people here soon because
that's right.
He's gonna.
Well, let's talk a little bit about precision hair restoration. Now, it's a pretty random line of work or random spa or a medical facility to start in New Mexico, but also let's get a close-up of your hair, right? I mean, a gentleman with hair like this, you wouldn't think would be an expert in hair restoration, or are you also a member?
I try and practice what I preach. So there are some tips and tricks that I use for myself to try and optimize current conditions, but yeah, I have not yet had a hair transplantation myself.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, you have a fantastic facility in a central location. If you were to drop a pin like in the middle of the best place to be in Albuquerque as far as traffic, advertising, and just being part of the daily commute for most of the people in town, your facility, Precision Medical, is right there on San Mateo?
San Mateo near I-25. So we're grateful to have a location that is able to cater to audiences throughout the entire city and really the entire state too. We have people who are driving in. So visibility I think is important, especially being a newer practice. So getting your name out there and just letting people know that we exist and we're there to help them, I think was an important thing for us.
I feel like the billboards do a good job of letting people know, hey, there's hair restoration here. And let's be honest about society, right? What do men probably have? We have hair, and what else do we have? Maybe sunglasses,
nice
watches,
shoes,
and eyebrows, right? But that's really when it comes down to it. It's been accepted for cosmetic and surgeries for women, and I think men are finally catching up and being able to claim, can I get some help here too?
Yeah, I think just my first exposure to the field made me realize how important hair is to people, and it's really linked to a sense of identity for that person.
Sure.
And so most people, when they first start to notice hair loss, it's obviously, for a lot of people, it's concerning, and I think that there's a lot of misinformation out there. So part of the concern is that they aren't sure what steps that they can take in order to prevent future loss, and actually to kind of feel more empowered instead of they're up against something that they don't have control over.
Yeah, I would say as a self-admitted vain guy, I had always contemplated, like, man, what if I lost my hair? Right, that's my mainstay. What? Just some bad jokes. I always thought about that being a fear. It's a legitimate fear for guys, and guys never get to go, hey, I kind of feel like I'm losing confidence, and it's a big booster. And you shared for me a couple stories about how men have absolutely got their confidence up and became new guys. It just revitalized them.
Absolutely. It seems to be, and this applies for both men and women. It's something that really serves as a catalyst for people that kind of propels them in a very positive momentum that often spills into other areas of their lives. So,
all right. So what got you into this field? Like you had a bunch of choices. Smart guy, graduated high in his class. You got to pick whatever you wanted to do. What made you pick?
I mean, to be completely honest, it wasn't something that was initially on my radar because traditionally in the medical field we're triaging things that are higher acuity. What's the most threatening to this to this patient? How do we keep them out of the hospital? So the things that are less acute and less require action in that particular visit, they always get deferred, even though these are conditions that are still really important to the people to get addressed. So a lot of the visits would, if you're focusing on diabetes and hypertension and the heart health, these are all incredibly important things, and we should put a lot of emphasis on that. But it just means that there's not enough avenues for people to seek help for other things that are important to them. And so I kind of stumbled on the field by working with a colleague in San Diego, and I wasn't exposed to it in Albuquerque because it didn't exist at the time when I was in medical school. So my very first day working with a hair transplant surgeon in California, I fell in love with it. The patients who were coming in for their post-op patients, some of the happiest patients in any field of medicine I saw.
That's
so
great.
Realizing I ultimately went into the medical field to try and make people happy, this to me seemed like very low-hanging fruit
Mission
to make people
accomplished.
happy.
Yeah, that's great. Let's talk about the facility. I got to take a visit in there yesterday, and it's beautiful. Let's talk about the transition you're making. You were going to remodel the other side, and so I'll let you talk about what you want to get done.
Sure. Yeah. So we recently remodeled the building. It's off of San Mateo, and so for the building, we wanted something that had a modern but yet a comfortable
It's got
aesthetic
some
for
San
people.
Diego vibe to it. You don't find much of some facilities that look as nice and updated as this
Yeah,
here
thank you.
locally.
Thank you. We probably did get some influence from some centers in California as well.
I think we're going to the other. Oh, we're going to at this point, right, Chris? We're going to the place where you go, the before and after, and we got some shots, and I believe I had my Pomeranian who also got a hair transplant at your place, and look how she turned out. Look at that
She's
hair
one
growth.
of our model patients, really.
Yeah,
True
she's camera
success,
shy. Yeah.
Very success story.
On the other side, you're going to be doing what for aesthetics?
So we'll be doing a variety of aesthetic procedures. So IV lounge, injectables, different microneedling techniques.
Teeth? What about teeth?
So teeth,
Teeth
that is something that
Can
we
I get
may-
some
that
teeth
we
He
may
wants to do a
incorporate.
teeth
Yeah, exactly.
injection. Do you have a,
I need bigger
tooth
teeth. What do I do?
Well, we have a shot for that.
Shot in the mouth.
I want to go back to me having a familiarity and you being my friend for so long. Your parents' history on there and your prime location is probably the reason for this, right? Talk about your parents' business endeavors in Albuquerque.
Sure. So my parents, obviously, they had a very strong pull for my influence of coming back here. So that was one of the main decisions, was wanting to be close to family.
Yeah.
My parents, they've been practicing in Albuquerque. They've had a variety of different practices in chiropractic. They're involved with the Scorpions ice hockey team. So it was also helpful for me, being a new entrepreneur and business owner, to be able to kind of leverage and piggyback off of their previous experiences. So they've both been very good mentors for me. And I'm actually, where our office is located is one of their buildings as well that used to be the home of the New Mexico Scorpions. So we're kind of going full circle now.
Yeah.
Let me bring up one point. Now, your motto is fly a little and save a lot. So, as a business owner, talk about what does that mean? As a business owner here in Albuquerque.
Sure, absolutely. So we have patients who fly in from all over the country. So states from coast to coast. I'd say about 60% of our patients are local, and another 40% fly in. Hair transplant is an extensive procedure, so it can be quite costly. The costs tend to increase along the coasts. And so, our goal is to try and offer a very quality product for people, but to maintain a price point where it makes more people able to afford it, so that you don't have to be a celebrity to get a hair transplant.
Yeah.
But oftentimes, if you're, in the coastal regions, it can be prohibitively expensive. So we're trying to open up access to as many people as possible.
You brought up. We were talking about hair trivia, and what was the country that has the hack jobs of hair transplants? I can speak pejorative because we're talking about you have ABQ, not other countries. So
Yeah.
you can diss a country right now.
So-
Which one is that?
Well, there's hair transplants are becoming more popular in a lot of countries, but Turkey is one country.
Yeah,
where
Turkey. We're on to you. Your
So-
hack job hair transplants.
Stick to stuffing.
There are some very good physicians and surgeons in Turkey as well. But as a consumer, you just have to be very careful and do your due diligence. You want to make sure that where you're going is very reputable. You want to make sure that the people treating you are all licensed. And so you don't want to do a fast food surgery. You want something where you're getting individualized care and that the appropriate safety measures are taken.
Wouldn't you say that I feel like women have been more privy to the varying degrees, right? And you always saw hack jobs and plastic surgeries, and those were out in the news. I remember when I was a kid, it'd be 80s, 90s, early 2000s, just bad lip surgeries and boob jobs
face.
and this silicone coming out to the armpit and stuff. And I think men have to also now be privy to going, hey, there are varying skill sets for hair transplant now.
Absolutely. So something like hair transplantation, you have one chance to get it right. It is a very technical procedure, and it's really something that shouldn't be offered as a platter item where people are occasionally doing this. It's not as simple as doing Botox. It's very nuanced, and it takes a whole team that is trained in how to do this particular procedure.
So let's touch on something. I had a hernia surgery, and there's something similar to the machines you use, and also speak to how you're an artist in a way that you prefer to do something still with your hands.
Sure,
right?
Absolutely. So there's a lot of different ways to acquire hair follicles, and that's what we were talking about yesterday. At our practice, we do the lesser invasive approach of a hair transplant, and that's called FUE, which stands for follicular unit extraction. That's referring to doing individual biopsies of hair follicles. We typically get the hair follicles from the back. That is our preferred donor area because that most resembles the quality of hair that was lost. We have several different ways that we can acquire those hair follicles. One of them is the Artis iX robot, and that is one of the most advanced pieces of medical equipment for getting hair follicles. And so that's a physician-assisted robotic device that is able to help me get those hair follicles from the back. I also have a couple of handheld devices that I've gotten really phenomenal results from as well. And there are some advantages and disadvantages to each. It's really about how you are applying it to that person and the context of what their goals are. But the manual method it also has advantages where you're able to expand your donor window and increase the surface area of hair follicles that you might be able to acquire. After we acquire those follicles, we are, as a team, one by one, placing those follicles into what we call a recipient area, and that's either to lower a hairline or to conceal the scalp in areas that people were concerned about.
Yes, I think it's fascinating in the fact that there isn't a standard way to do these procedures, and that he can't just whip them out and go, I got 4 done right now with my eyes closed. Knowing the type of guy that you are, I am very sure that everyone is getting a very careful, diligent approach, and that can't be said for a lot of surgeries. I don't want to say malpractice in other fields, but I think that sometimes I believe any type of medicine can experience people being a little bit callous or not giving you quite the attention that you would want. But it sounds like you're attentive, and every person has your 100%.
This is you're exactly right. I mean, this is a field that it is very meticulous, and so we only do 1 procedure a day for that reason, and we have all hands on deck to make sure that it can go as perfectly as possible for that person.
Well, Skip found a screwdriver in his neck when they took out his tonsils, so that was probably a malpractice.
I got my money back though.
and to Ace Hardware.
I got screwed. Hey, so a couple of things before we wrap up. I want to touch on this too, because it's not just the precision of taking out a hair and transplanting it. It's talk about the entire patient experience from landing in Albuquerque to being, shuttled to what can they expect. I mean, shave the head. I mean, it's not just a 2-hour thing. It's a whole weekend.
Yeah, it is a whole ordeal, and luckily, my office is really helpful at coordinating to make it a very smooth transition. So really, once people book their flights to and from Albuquerque, everything else we take care of for them. So, but we usually have the patient come in the day prior to the procedure. We do some preoperative planning.
I love that. You shave the head and then you get the marker out and you're doing, connect the dots on the forehead.
Exactly.
And I make fun of it a little bit. It draws some light, but the reality is it's a pretty invasive process that you guys go through.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do hairline design, and we talk to the patient about what would look nice and natural for them. You want a good hair transplant should whisper, it shouldn't scream. And so I give them some feedback from what I've seen, what works well for people based on their natural hairline and facial characteristics. We design their hairline, and then when they come in for the procedure, it's usually a full day. but we do local anesthesia, so that way it's not painful for people. If you ask a lot of people who have had a hair transplant and a tattoo, a lot of them will say the tattoo actually felt worse.
Wow.
And that's my goal, is to try and make it as comfortable as possible for people.
You know, it's confession time, guys. You can't find tapes 5 years back from our show because I used to have a headline like George Costanza. So I have to actually confess and say, you know, Plaman, thank you for the hair transplant myself. It's been paying dividends.
Actually.
Yeah, you would never know I was actually George Costanza's cousin. So, anyways, no, literally, thank you. Thanks for coming on the show. It was a plethora of knowledge, and the other thing is you creating jobs in New Mexico and in Albuquerque specifically. I'm glad to have you back and sponsoring more of the economy, just like your parents did too.
Thank you so much. Very grateful to be back in Albuquerque. This has always been home for me,
Yeah.
and so it's
Yeah,
been
well,
great.
we're happy that you're here creating jobs and making a difference in the community. Again, the show is UABQ, so we always want to bring on people that are interesting and making a difference. So Dr. Chris Plaman at Precision Medical, we really appreciate you coming by. We'll have a link to your website, social media. Follow the guy on social. He's got some good stuff. You can see behind the scenes of the drawing on the forehead and stuff like that.
If you're a candidate or not, I find it just particularly interesting. But yeah, if you're a candidate, hit him up. He's the best guy I know at this.
Stay tuned to the end of the show. In our last segment, we're just going to change your life. I'm just going to come out and say it.
We're changing lives now. This is getting aggressive. Okay.
Stay tuned to the last segment. We're going to jump into
Skip tips. Wow.
Tips.
Hi, welcome back, UABQ. And we have a last segment that I think everyone is just losing their mind over. I know I am. We're going to get right into Skip's Tips.
Thank you. That's right. It's Skip's Tips. Skip's Tips are anything that saves us time, makes us more fun. Start over. Hey, welcome into Skip's Tips. Skip's Tips are anything that saves us time, makes us more money, or helps us have more fun, whether that's in real estate or real life. Now, one of the biggest questions we always get asked is Albuquerque a dangerous place? Well, good news. The Albuquerque Police Department has just launched their new safety app. Okay, so check this out. If you go into the App Store, you're going to search for the new Albuquerque Police Department app. They continue to do some advancements in technology. Yeah, I'm just reading off this. We're going to do a little graphic up here. APD continues to make advancements in technology where they launch their new mobile app in real time. So what they're going to do is when you log into the app here, you're going to put in your location. A couple things can happen. They're going to give you updates on crimes nearby or emergencies nearby, things that you need to be made aware of as a resident here of Albuquerque. If you need to contact them, you can contact the police department directly through the app. You can even follow them on Twitter for better updates as well. But people find this as a big tip or a big help because a lot of times when you need to report something, you can always just log into the app. Or if there's violent crime going on nearby you need to be made aware of, you'll get that alert right there every time. So that's my Skip's tip. Wait, so here's how I'm going to log out of Skip's tip. Okay. If you found this If you found this useful, even just okay. So if you found this tip useful, even just a bit, then share it with your friends. Tell them that's Skip's tip.
Whew, do I feel safer now? I'm going to get that app. What would you do if I keep dropping my mixtape and it keeps creating city fires? Is there an app for that?
What would you do for a Klondike bar? Hey, listen, dude, your app is so sick. Skip's Tips. Great show today. I want to thank Dr. Chris Plaman for stopping by. Precision Medical Hair Restoration.
Yeah, love the family, love his interview. Just another episode of bringing people in that boost the economy and seeing other places and choose to keep coming back to Albuquerque. So
Yeah,
that's exactly what the show is about.
Seems to be a common story, a common denominator. People growing up here and then coming back here to make the place a better place. So.
To be with us, though. I mean, we're part of the tourism in White People Stay. I would like to think.
I want to thank you guys for tuning in. And again, this is all about you, ABQ.